Hey guys, my name's Harry and welcome to my short tutorial where I'll teach you to animate something like this in Blender. In this tutorial, I'll teach you how to import into Blender, set up your scene with lighting and a camera, animate your product, apply basic materials, and finally how to actually render your scene. Alright, I think that's enough chatting, let's get right into it. The first step to your animating process doesn't actually start in Blender, but with whatever software you use to make your 3D models, be it SolidWorks, Fusion 360, Rhinoceros for example. In my case, we'll start in SolidWorks. In order to make your model animating ready, you'll need to make sure that any parts you wish to animate in Blender are separate files in your assembly. That way, when you export your model as an STL, each component will be saved as its own separate file, making our lives a whole lot easier. Now that you've saved your model as separate STL files, we can go ahead and open up Blender and create a new general file. For the rest of this tutorial, it'll be me voicing over footage of me recreating my speaker scene in Blender. By default, Blender gives you one camera, one point light, and one cube. But like most times you start in Blender, we'll go ahead and delete this cube by pressing X on our keyboard to delete. Next, you can see me importing my files into Blender, going import, STLs, and then navigating to the place we saved our STLs in the first place from SolidWorks. Select all of them holding Shift, and then change the up direction to Y if you're using SolidWorks, and then change the scale down to 0.01 or 0.02. In my case, 0.2. And there we go. We've got our parts from SolidWorks into Blender to work with. My next step is inserting my first animation keyframes. I do this by selecting all the parts of my product up in the navigator and hitting I on my keyboard to insert both location and rotation keyframes. As you can see in the little transformation tab on the right, both location and rotation are highlighted, ready for animating, and a little symbol has been placed at the timeline in the bottom. Up next, I'll make sure to set my frames per second to 30. You can make this whatever you like, but 30 is an easy animation speed to work with. For my animation, I want to make it about 3 seconds long, so I count out 90 frames in the timeline, and I move the blue timeline cursor up to that point. Now I can start moving my parts to where I want them to end up at the end of my animation. I want the entire right side of my product to move outwards, so I select all the necessary parts, holding Shift, and move them using the red handle to shift them in the X direction. You can see me using the tool up on the right to quickly move from side to top views to get the parts exactly where I want them. However, you will also see me using hotkeys to move, rotate, or scale parts in a certain direction. These commands help streamline your workflow, so I recommend using them whenever you can. Here you can see me doing the exact same thing to all the other components, so I thought I wouldn't bore you with me doing it in real time. Next, you can see me setting up my camera position by moving my view to the place where I want my camera to be and hitting Ctrl, Alt, and 0. You can also see me selecting the outside edge of the camera and pressing G to freely move it to the right a bit before checking my resolution is set to 1920 by 1080, and then heading down to the green camera tab and changing the focal length to fit my whole product. Finally, to lock in my animation, I go ahead and select all the parts of my product which I just moved to the exploded positions and hit I on my keyboard to insert another location and rotation keyframe. This allows Blender to animate movement between the two keyframe points we set, getting us one stage closer to our final animation. If we look closely at this part of the speaker, these two sections overlap and intersect when moving, which isn't the effect we were trying to achieve. So, to fix this, I have to edit some of the timings and positions of the parts. I start by selecting this piece and then selecting the last keyframe in the timeline to drag it down 30 frames, effectively making this part arrive to its final location 30 frames or 1 second faster. For this next piece, I'm going to have to change its positioning a little bit, so I'll go ahead and delete just the last keyframe. Making sure that my timeline cursor is at 60 frames, I move this part so that it meets the other piece, and then I insert a location keyframe to lock this movement in place. Next, I want to animate this part to move to the side, so I move my timeline along 10 frames because I want this movement to be quick, and then move out this piece, inserting another location keyframe after I'm done. Finally, to get this part to return to the same position we had it originally, I move my timeline cursor to 90 frames and realign my part before moving it back to its original position and inserting, you guessed it, another keyframe. Because I've moved this part in two directions, both X and Y, Blender will combine these linear movements into one compound motion, effectively making the piece move diagonally to its final position. Now you can see me going through the process of replicating this movement for the other piece on this side of the speaker. Because my exploded view is so wide, my assembled view looks too small and unbalanced in the static frame. So, to fix this, I decide to animate the camera focal length and position to better fit the subject. I do this by selecting the camera and navigating to the focal length slider and clicking the grey dot next to it to start animating this feature. I also, with the camera still selected, insert a location keyframe at the 90 frame mark before moving my timeline cursor back to the beginning. From here, I hit G on my keyboard to freely move the camera, centralizing my subject, and insert a keyframe for this motion. I then slide up the focal length to zoom in on my speaker, and hit the white square after I'm done. Switching to the render view up in the top right, I check that I'm in Cycle's rendering engine, and that I'm using GPU compute, as this will speed up the sampling process. If you don't have a dedicated GPU, you can use CPU compute, but make sure you turn down the sampling load. Moving down to the sampling section, I set my viewport samples to 50 to get a less noisy view of my speaker, before moving to the Materials Property tab and selecting the first part I want to apply a material to. For this tutorial, I just used the base, color, metallic and roughness sliders to achieve the final result. For the part I selected first, I want to create an orange plastic look. So I set my base color to orange and mess around with the roughness slider until I got a result I was happy with. I then selected the other parts I wanted to be the same material and clicked the button next to New to select my newly made orange plastic. Up next, I want to make this part metallic, so I select it in the viewport and choose to add New Material. I change the color to a darker grey and up the metallic value, for a quick and easy metal finish. Next, I want the main body of my speaker to be black, so I follow the same process to the orange plastic, but instead lower the brightness to near 0% before applying it to the other parts of the speaker. Finally, I apply the same materials to the rest of the parts like the screws and dials. Up next is lighting. Referencing my original speaker animation, I go ahead and replicate the positions of the lights and the backdrop for this tutorial. I start by adding in the plane, which will serve as our backdrop. I do this by pressing Shift and A to access the Add menu, where I select Add Plane. I then position this plane, rotating and scaling it to fit the entire frame of the camera and place it behind the subject. After this, I press Shift and A again to add an area light to the scene. Move it just in front of the newly added plane. I then direct the light by grabbing the yellow line coming from the light source and rotate it to point directly at the plane before changing the size and shape of the light source. You can do this directly in the viewport or in the light properties tab on the right. After this, I go ahead and up the brightness value. Next, I start tackling the other lights in the scene by following the exact same process of adding, moving, and changing the properties until I have my subject well lit from all angles. Also, make sure you move your animation all the way through the timeline and check that your parts don't intersect your lights at any point during the movement. Now that we've finished all the animation, materials and lighting, we can finally move on to rendering our product with cycles. Firstly, I changed my render sample count to 500 as my scene is pretty well lit, and I changed my tile size to around 200 pixels as I'll be using both my GPU and CPU to render. Depending on how powerful your PC or laptop is, you can decrease or increase these numbers. A helpful tool if you have to use a lower sample count is AI denoising. This can sometimes yield strange results, so experiment with this feature. Next, I set my color depth to 16 and compression to 0% before navigating to the color management tab and experimenting with different color profiles and curve adjustments to alter the contrast of my scene. You can turn off overlays to get a better picture of what your final image will look like. Once I was happy, I rendered a test image up in the top left under Render, then Render Image. This took about 1.5 minutes to render on my PC, but could take longer depending on what settings you choose. To render an animation, first I need to set an output location where Blender will dump all the frames it renders, and then set a start and end point to the animation. For this animation, I told Blender to stop rendering after 100 frames. After this, you can go to Render and then choose Render Animation and let Blender do its thing. This process will take quite a while depending on your settings. For reference, my original animation took 8 hours to render. If you haven't quite got the time, or you're afraid your computer might melt, you can instead render your animation in Blender's other rendering engine, Eevee. Eevee produces near real-time rendering, like that seen in modern video games, so it'll make the animating process that much quicker. For my rendering settings, I set my sample to around 200, I turned on ambient occlusion and bloom, dialing down the intensity. Next I turned on motion blur and upped the shadow quality to 2048 pixels, and experimented with screen space reflections, before rendering a test image to make sure that it all looked good. Finally, after getting all my settings dialed in, I set the animation to run, and after about 5 minutes, all 100 frames have been rendered and outputted to the designated folder. Using a free program called DaVinci Resolve, I'll create a new project and drop the outputted frames into the media pool, where DaVinci automatically combines all the images into a seamless clip. Next, I'll make sure to change the frame rate of the project to match the frame rate I rendered my animation at, which was 30 frames per second, before dropping my new clip into the timeline. You could leave it there, but for this example, I decided to duplicate the clip and reverse it so that the video loops back to the starting frame. Finally, I went to File and Quick Export to save out my video. And there you have it, your final animation. Thank you guys for sticking to the end of this tutorial. If you want to check out more of my work, give me a follow over on harryrigler.design or visit my website www.harryrigler.co.uk.